Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Eddie Jennings from EJSLLC.com. This video is another in my practice session series for the Red Hat Certified Specialist in Managing Automation with Ansible Automation Platform EX467 exam. Before I dive in, I want to thank returning subscribers for watching another video, as well as invite anyone who's watching, if you haven't subscribed, to click the subscribe button. Also, I want to remind everyone that these are my practice sessions for the exam. It's my opportunity to go through all of the published objectives from Red Hat and either demonstrate whatever the objective is talking about or describe whatever concept is significant to the objective. And at the end of the video, I will do a little self-assessment and hopefully I will feel confident with whatever the objective is, meaning I'm probably ready to take on whatever tasks the exam has for me for that objective. Or if not, then I have just over a week to do a little bit of brushing up and filling in some final knowledge gaps before the exam. That being said, these should not be considered tutorials, nor should they be considered training materials, and frankly, they really shouldn't be considered authoritative information. I myself am still learning the items. I'm preparing for my exam. I do try to have the information accurate because I would hope at this point in the preparation game I have not learned inaccurate information. But since I am still learning, I would not use these as training materials by any means. Instead, I put these out on the internet in hopes of folks that are preparing for the exam. You might see some of the stuff that I do and get ideas on things you can do yourself for exam preparation. So that's why I put these out here. But these are my practice sessions. They are not designed to be tutorials. So continuing on, we're going to look at Manage Access for Automation Controller. And rather than do individual videos for each of these subtopics, because several of them are related, I'm probably going to split this into two videos. We'll see if it runs too long. Something to keep in mind, there's a couple of ways of doing all of these configurations on Automation Controller. We can do them in the GUI, which I'm going to be demonstrating for several of these, but you also have the API for the controller that you can use curl commands and configure these things with the API, or there's the Ansible controller collection that has several modules that are effectively using the API to do the configurations. As far as the exam goes, I want to think that kind of the goal of the exam is having you do a lot of this stuff in the GUI, because if you've ever seen any of the product demos for Ansible Automation Platform or been a part of webinars and such, a lot of it really is focused on, hey, here's our shiny GUI and this is how easy it is to do stuff with Ansible. So I have a feeling the exam is going to kind of lead you in that direction. That being said, it's good to know about the actual Ansible modules and such for this, and the API if you're wanting to do stuff as code and your infrastructure as code. I myself, through my preparation process, I've primarily worked on the GUI with this. I have touched the module a bit, and I might try to do a couple things with the module just to get some practice reps with it. But I encourage you, if you're working toward this exam and you have a copious amount of time, I at this point have a week left, then I would encourage you to learn how to do these things both using the Ansible controller module as well as doing stuff with the GUI. It's always good to know a couple of ways of doing things. So let's go into our controller. So lab controller, not lab console, internal egslab.com. I'm going to log in with our default admin account, and within access we're going to go to users. Now when we add a user, this is similar to what you have with the private automation hub. You can do your first and last name. We'll just call this test user 1, give it an email if you want, and we'll do our, what was it, I did password monkey, right? 1, 2, 3. We'll use that for all of these. Now with user types. So in the Private Automation Hub, you basically had normal user and super user. The super user was basically root. You had all access to everything. You have three types with the automation controller. You have just your standard normal user, and you have system administrator. System administrator is that like root access to everything account, and you also have system auditor. From what I remember, your system auditor they can basically view everything in the controller, but they cannot actually make changes. So we'll put some of that to the test here. First, I'll make this one a system administrator and organization. So all users have to be a part of an organization, and this kind of harkens back to Red Hat Satellite. I think you have your organizations, which I see that, and my concepts behind this might be wrong. It's just how I understand things versus necessarily how Red Hat is intending for me to understand things. But your organizations are kind of like the large scale groups or large scale container, thinking about like Active Directory stuff, that will hold users in groups of a variety of teams. And I would imagine in a very like small deployment of Ansible automation platform where you might just have a single team that is interfacing with this, you're just going to use the default organization. But if you did want to have the stuff in controller like partitioned off to, you have your general sysadmins that can, I guess, see everything in an org. You have system administrators for a particular part of the business that would be using Ansible automation platform. They would be in their own organization. The point being is a user has to be a part of some organization, and by default, no pun intended, we have the default org for your initial creation of users. So we're going to save that. And we're also going to make test user 2, and we're going to make test user 2 an auditor and take a look at the differences. Test user 2 password is, let's say password monkey 123. We're going to make this one a system auditor. Keep it in the default org, and we'll go ahead and make test user 3, and that'll just be a normal user, and we'll look at the differences with that. Of course, I'm doing this with the GUI. All right, normal type user and organization default. Okay, so we kind of know what test user 1 is going to see. They're going to see everything that I have as admin, as far as you can create teams, you can create organizations. Notice you have add here. You can add credentials. We can, if we're getting into automation mesh and all that, we can actually, we don't, our instance groups, that's it. If we had automation mesh really good, you can make instance groups. It's not really going to matter right now, but we can add instance groups. We can create job templates. We can create inventories. We can create projects. The whole thing. You have administrative access to everything. So let's log out, and we're going to log in as test user 2. This was the system auditor role that it has. And notice that we can see everything but the add, and if I were to check the job template, the delete button is not, it even tells you don't have select the role to delete, and you don't have permissions to do that. So that is effectively the difference. You can see the users, you can see the details and information about the users, but you can't alter them. Well, you can alter your own user, but you cannot alter the other users. You can see all the orgs, you can't make orgs, on and on and on. And then let's log in as test user 3. That's just our normal user. And with this, you can generally view stuff. Test user 3. You can alter your own stuff with users. You can add your own credential. It wouldn't be a credential that's organization-wide. But of course, we don't have much stuff built out, so you're not going to be able to have things like siloed off for different users. But you would be able to do kind of what you need within the controller. So looking back at the objectives, so configure user types, we have that. System administrator, system auditor, and then the normal user. The other thing, this This is talking about configure organization roles. I guess we can do that. What we're going to do to make an organization, I'm going to try to do that with the API using the Ansible controller module, or the modules in the Ansible controller collection. So I'm going to go to my private automation hub, and I'm actually going to use the documentation feature for that. So we're going to go to collections, Red Hat certified, search for controller. This is provided by Ansible, so that's the namespace, and documentation. The module that I'll be wanting to use is the organization module. And basically all the controllers, you're going to have to tell it what host. You're going to have username, password. You can also do different tokens and such. I think that's outside of the scope of what I would potentially need to do. But this would work like almost any other module that you're using to configure something. State present. We're going to try to use that execution environment made from our previous video to where we can not have to set validate certs as false. So let's see if we can do this. So what I'm going to do here is see where I left off with the last video. So let's do just call it controller. With this, we're going to need to, or we don't necessarily have to do this, but I want to use the execution environment, so I'll be using Ansible Navigator, and we're going to have to make a little configuration file for that. And I'm not sure, I can tell you I don't have that off the top of my head memorized. So if I were having to do this on the exam, I would probably do something of the like here. Ansible Navigator, going to do config and then just a bunch of trash, because I can't remember off the top of my head the exact, of course it's trying to pull, yeah, that's not what I was wanting it to do. I was just showing the Ansible configuration. I think it's settings is really what I want. EE faults is to where it will not try to pull down a container image or an execution environment image. I think it's Ansible Navigator settings, EE faults. What I want though, sample, that's what I want. GS or -- sample. Going to standard out, and we're going to put that, output that to just foo.yml. Because I do know if you output that to the actual Ansible-navigator.yml, that'll cause problems. You have to output it to some other file that you want, and then rename that to the Ansible Navigator. There's just a couple of things I want to set with this. As much as I do like this document, the indentation can get screwy once you start taking away the comments. Execution environment, the image that I specifically want to use, go to my execution environments, is that image that we created that has the certificate authorities in it. And the pull policy, I'm just going to pull it if it's missing. And I want to have it not make the little playbook artifacts, because all that's going to do is start to litter my little directory with the stuff that you kind of need if you're wanting to use all of the features and such. Enable faults. All right, move that to Ansible Navigator.yml, and let's see if this will work the way that I want. Nope, of course it has complained. In addition to it not liking images, line 95, column 11. Yeah, that means there's an indentation problem. So let me see if I can troubleshoot this. I was hoping to not have to do this, but I'm going to do what I probably should have done. So we're going to start getting rid of areas. I think I see where the problem is. Okay, so now it's not complaining about the YML or the YAML. It does not like images. And of course it's complaining about the Ansible Navigator.yml. So this is clearly something that I probably want to refresh myself with before the exam to have it better under my fingers. Necessarily see a problem, but we'll do this. We'll do it the way that I have always done it in the past, so why not start with that first, right? So we'll do Ansible Navigator, settings, defaults, sample, foo.yml, and we'll start over. We'll do enable true image. I guess with pull, what we need is, though I thought that would be part of, but I guess, yeah, it kind of makes sense. I was expecting like a key called policy. There is a key for policy, but we'll see what happens. Get my image name again. Now I thought about doing some of this prep work before actually recording the practice session, but I decided not, simply because I might as well make this be an accurate practice session. All right, so I think that's what I want for execution environment. We're going to yank some of the stuff out of the playbook artifact. So will be enabled false. All right, now let's see if this works. Yeah, missing was unexpected. That's what I thought. A little policy tag in the comments seemed a bit confusing. Yay, stuff works. And I probably could I know I can set the mode in that. So to the actual task at hand, let's make us a little playbook. We're going to call it org.yml. Set up test org1. We're just going to run this against localhost. We don't necessarily need to become for this, but tasks, set up test org1. So we'll be using the Ansible controller organization, or is organizations plural? Let's check this out here. Organization singular is what I want. All right, the name is going to be test org1. And we need to put in our authentication bits. So I think we need controller host. Now I do know you can run this actually against your controller, and it's going to recognize the fact that it is an automation controller. And I know there's an option for automation controller config. I have not dove into that and all the options that are with that particular configuration file, but I know that's a thing. Perhaps one day I will dig into it. But anyway, our host will be lab-controller.egslab.com. The controller user, we'll use, what do we make? Test user 1 was the super user. Of course, in a production environment, you would encrypt this stuff with Ansible Vault. Password Nucky123. I think that's what I had. Oh, controller user name is what I need. Password name test org. State will be present. See if there's any other little bits that I might need for that. I guess we can give it a description as well. Test org1. Okay, let's see if this works. Glancing at this, I think configuration is right with that. So let's do Ansible Navigator, m standard out, run org yml. Let's see what happens. Famous last words in IT, right? No module name disutils. Well, grumble. Look at that error one more time. So I figured that should have been a part of my execution environment. Just for a quick test, let's try this against the EE supported. And I know this will fail because of, oh wait, am I still logged into, yeah, let me log into, that might be part of the problem, which I think it would have complained about pulling the image first, but let's just make sure. Podman login, lab, hub, EGS lab, internal, egslab.com. Okay, so I'm already logged in. So I figured that probably wasn't the issue, but might as well check. This time we're going to specify the image to use. Let's see if we get a different result. What I'm expecting to see is it complained about TLS. Oh, I must have typoed that. So let's go back to .yml. Yep, I forgot to put .internal. And then this should complain about verifying TLS. Yep, because obviously the execution environment from Ansible does not, or from Red Hat does not know about my internal little CA. So let's add validate certs false. I have a feeling that'll probably be what needs to happen on the exam as well if you have to do this kind of thing. So there's an issue with the execution environment that I made, which doesn't surprise me. That'll be something I need to practice. All right, so no errors. Got the change. Now let's look at organizations. Oh, I'm test user 3. That would be why I can't see that. Let's go back to our super user, test user 1. Test user 1 can now see the organization. So frankly, if given the choice on the exam, I'm probably going to do the stuff with the GUI. I think it would be faster. Maybe in a real production environment, I would try to not necessarily do stuff with the GUI and do stuff using the modules and have all that in source control. But it's important to be able to do it with both, I think, just not necessarily as exam prep is concerned, but just in real life, knowing how to get the things done. So let's go back to the objectives here and try to get back on track. So we had to make an organization. Talk about roles for this. So let's go into test org 1. A lot of these different objects are going to have an access tab, and this access tab is what's used to configure all of the different roles and such. And so what we have here, and this is something that can be a bit confusing, and I'll be the first to say that I don't have, probably not good, a week before the exam, but I don't have a full-fledged understanding of exactly how all of the inheritance works. But in test org 1, are these users added to test org 1? They shouldn't be. No, it doesn't have any members. Oh, I see. It's showing me the people that I can't add. I was confused for a moment. Now I see. Okay. This makes sense. My brain fizzled out for a moment. So these users have some type of access to test org 1 because of the role that they were granted by the fact that their user was created. So the admin user, that's made at the time of creating your environment. It's there. The test user 1 has access to this particular org by the fact that its user role is system administrator, test user 2, system auditor, which makes sense why test user 3 couldn't see anything. But then I can either add users or teams. Think of teams as groups. I think I complained about this in the private automation hub. And then as a user, I can pick some user. Let's pick test user 3. And these are all the various different roles. Now, do I have all of this memorized? No. But do I have a good understanding of basically what these roles can do? Yes. As far as, if I grant, whatever I grant test user 3 in this org, if I grant them admin, then they can't admin everything on the controller, but they can admin everything within this org, which are projects that are made in this org, credentials, being able to create notifications within the org, job templates within the org. You can grant them the auditor role for the org, so this user is not going to have the auditor role for the entire controller, but for the org, they will be able to see all of the different aspects. So we can kind of put that to the test here. So I'm going to grant test user 3 audit permissions for this particular org. So let me log out. We're going to log in as test user 3. We see test user 3 is now able to see the org, and it would be able to see all of the things that are made that are related to that particular org. And just for giggles, It's going to be kind of tough to do this without, I guess I can use credentials for this. So let's go to credentials. We can kind of put this to the test here. We should, now you can make a credential for yourself. I'm just going to call this my cred 1. And we'll just make this a machine credential, one of the easiest types. And what I'm going to do is not set an organization for this. This is a credential just for the test user 3. Now I'm going to try to make a credential in the organization. Let's see if it'll let me do that. We'll do this for test org 1. Yep, we don't have permission to do that. Even though if there was a credential in test org 1, we would be able to view it. We are not going to be able to see if we make one in the default org. This is probably going to be permission denied as well. Yep, permission denied. So now what I want to do, let me log in as test user 1. That's our administrator. And let's see what else we can play with here. Org access. Technically, test user 3 is not actually a member of this org yet. So what you can do, or it should be, but normal user, is there a member role? The reason why I'm a little confused with that is I see members 0 for test org 1. We have it as an auditor. There's member. Now, functionally, I'm not 100% sure well, I guess members will probably be able to do a few tasks within the org, but an auditor, I guess that's what the dividing line is. The auditor can literally just read things in the org. The member would be able to actually do some stuff. And I think, but even then, member, I'm fairly sure member is fairly restricted for what it can do. Let me look at these again. Yeah. You would have to grant, like, you would be a member of an organization, but then the other objects in that organization, the different credentials, the different job templates, you would then need to grant the use role or the can use role to actually use the things. Versus here, at the org level, the permissions that you are granting is everything that is in that org. You can do this stuff with. You can change it, you can delete it, you can make it. Figure organization roles. We've done some basic configuration of that. I want to do a little bit more review of what the roles can do. I think I know enough to be able to probably do what I need to do on the exam, but obviously I'm not a master at it. Let's see, create automation controller, users and teams. Well, we've made users. We haven't made a team yet. So let's go back and make us a team. So we'll call it test team 1. Teams, just like users, have to be a part of some type of org. And let's go ahead and put it into test org 1. Oh, I think, no, go back to my organizations. All right, so you're in test org 1. Just like with users, teams also can have access lists. They can manage all aspects of a team, or they can just be a member of the team, or they can just read the settings of the team. And then within the org, there's our little team there. You can then give the team all of those same roles that I did give that one particular user. So in the real world, this is probably how you would be doing stuff. You will be creating teams in your org, granting permission, like administrative permissions if you want to grant them administrative permissions for your teams, and then the users are getting that from their team rather than the individual user. So I think for this particular objective, my weakness is just knowing all of the different roles and all that they can do. But I think I know enough that if, for example, in the exam, I highly doubt it's going to say grant this specific role to this user. It's probably going to say something like, this user needs to be able to do these things, granted the role that it needs. And I think the names of the roles are clear enough that it would not be difficult to figure out which role a user needs. Now, probably if I had, for my exams, I didn't give this one as much of a time window as I have some of my past exams. That's why I feel a little weaker with this going into it. But I think in the real world, you'll be familiar with a few roles that you're touching often, but you'll rely on context knowledge to do that, and I think that's reasonable for the exam. If I had more time, I would probably try to memorize more roles, but again, I think the whole point of your Red Hat exam is less about trying to memorize things. So for this particular objective, managing access and automation controller, I'm going to consider it a pass, but between now and about a week and a half from now when my exam is, I'm going to create some scenarios and practice using different roles to make sure I try to have some of that a little bit better under my head or under my fingers. Hopefully you found the video useful. If you did, make sure that you give it a like. I want to thank returning subscribers again for watching another video, as well as invite anyone who's watching, if you haven't subscribed, to click the subscribe button and ring the bell when you do so you can know when new content is available. As always, thank you for your time, and I will see you the next time.